have joining me now, still on the space. We're talking with Priya Linson. Priya is the Executive Director of OneGoal Chicago, talking some things about our children in college. Priya, good morning and welcome back to WVON. How are you today?
Good morning, Rufus. Thanks so much for having me on again.
Well, thanks for being back, and thanks for your flexibility. The politics of last week, we couldn't get away from them in the moment, so thanks for...
Absolutely. Always willing to flex.
All right.
Good to be here.
Good to have you. Let's do this first. Let's remind people about OneGoal, what OneGoal is and what you all do there.
Absolutely. OneGoal is an organization that actually was born here in Chicago. We have been working here in Chicago for approximately 17 years. And our organization is focused on preparing young people for what comes after high school. We do that in a couple of different ways, but our primary focus is to make sure that students have really high quality advising and support about their options after high school when they're in high school, and all the support they need to make that jump into post-high school life and adulthood with the goal of completing a post-secondary degree or credential.
And as we talked before, this is an evolution which began as urban students empowering students for these things, and then developed into OneGoal, with OneGoal being college, but now OneGoal being to make certain that students are getting the most out of their potential in the ways in which they decide coming out.
You are. You're right. You're right with us.
So, Priya, let's talk about financial aid, because one of the things that happened this year there were a number of issues around the FAFSA and the impact of that. But at these points, sometimes you find that the aid that you need isn't really coming through, and there are ways in which people can do something with that. So talk to us about what happens when families get a financial decision that may not be the one they wanted.
Absolutely, Rufus. And I think it would be helpful to go back and just quickly recap what happened this year and why so many families might be in a situation where they're facing financial aid decisions from, higher ed institutions that aren't meeting their families' needs. And so the financial aid form, the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid, was launched this past year in a new format and caused a number of challenges with glitches, with the form not working. And so it delayed the process. It meant that many students didn't receive their financial aid award letters until this summer, as opposed to, early springtime, in order to make decisions. And so if students are actually facing financial award letters that are based on family information from earlier this spring, from the winter time, family circumstances may have changed. And so we want to make sure that young people and their families have all the information that they need to be armed with filing an appeal if necessary. So there are absolutely ways that families can go back to financial aid officers, provide new information, and actually get new decisions.
Talk about, that's important, because very often what we understand is when the ruling comes through, this is the ruling, and people really, in some cases, don't make it to school right away, or make some different decisions that may not be necessary if they know that they can challenge. So tell us about
Absolutely. That. I think it feels like a firm decision because you're getting a letter that's written in the mail. It looks very official. But the reality is that there are formulas behind how financial aid is calculated, but there are actually humans behind all of this work. And so one of the best ways to move forward if a financial aid decision is not meeting family need is actually to make a phone call to talk to a financial aid officer at the school and to get to know that financial aid officer. A lot of times those people are at the cutting edge. They know everything about financial aid. They're the experts. And so they're able to help students navigate the process and figure out what options are available. But the most important thing is that families know that there are actually appeal options for students. So there are two different types of appeals, one that's income related and another that's expense related. Those appeals can happen at any time. So they could happen now as students are getting ready to show up on the first day of school in the next couple of weeks. They can also happen mid-year if something should happen. So that income-related appeal is for a situation where family income might change. Somebody in the family may lose a job. There could be a death in the family, something that really changes the financial circumstances of a family. And there's also an expense-related appeal. So if a family or a student experiences an unexpected expense, such as a medical expense, some sort of other emergency, something related to a sibling or another family member, both of these scenarios require documentation, but those are the kinds of things that families need to be armed with when they're making a phone call and calling.
It's usually because something has changed that gives the basis of the appeal. Is there other ways in which something may just not have been able to be clarified on the form, and perhaps something that wasn't understood?
Usually it is an appeal process is when a circumstance has changed, but financial aid officers also have access to a lot of other information that can help students fill in other gaps. It might be that a student receives a financial aid package and it doesn't meet the family needs, even with nothing having changed. And so that financial aid officer can often help students navigate finding access to other grants or scholarships. And grants and scholarships are available. They're not only available when students are applying to college, they're available all the time. One of the ways that we try to make that visible for all students is through our open platform that's called GradPlan. Students can access gradplan.org and navigate to the financial tab and find information about grants and scholarships that might be open for them.
I think back to the time when I was in college, and I recall in my freshman seminar, they said, look to your right and look to your left. One of these people are not going to be here when you graduate. And it wasn't because people weren't capable, truly. It was because people didn't have the money. And so recognizing, I mean, college it's much more expensive now than it was then. And that often is the reason that people don't finish. It's because of finances. So talk about the poll that you've seen and what happens and what people can do to try and keep their finances or keep learning what's available for them, even if it doesn't happen at the very beginning.
The most important thing is to fill out the FAFSA as early as possible and as fully as possible every single year, and to get support doing that. So at OneGoal, we support our students directly to make sure that they're getting all the help that they need to fill out the FAFSA. But there are other people for students who are not OneGoal students, not just counselors in the classroom, but also financial aid officers, other community-based organizations. So that's thing one, always. And the second is what I already mentioned, is really getting to know your financial aid officers, building a relationship with them from the beginning because they have access. There's also access to emergency funding through a lot of organizations. So at OneGoal, we actually offer emergency funding through our emergency grant, our enrollment grant, where students can actually apply that have been OneGoal students. They can apply to access $500 or $1,000 grants that might help them with unexpected bills, tuition, gaps, books, etc. Things that just might be a little too challenging to pay for, that you might be experiencing a gap in. What we're trying to do is sort of build a system with our higher ed partners, help them reach their goals, to move from that moment of look left, look right, one of you is not going to be here, to look left, look right, grasp hands. Those are the people that are going to be with you for the next 4, 5, or 6 years, and will help you through that process. So I see that as a shift in higher ed. It's happening, and we're really proud to be a part of that evolution.
Priya, does OneGoal only work with students who are part of the OneGoal program or families?
Our direct classroom support is only for students who are part of the OneGoal program, but we wanted to be able to support students more broadly with the expertise and the resources that we've built. So we created an online tool called GradPlan, which can be found at gradplan.org, that has a ton of resources, including resources about financing college, that is available to everybody. You can also access us and contact us directly through GradPlan. There's a way to contact us, which is a really easy way to get some extra help for anyone looking for it.
And you're saying GradPlan, GRABPLAN.org.
That's exactly right. Grad plan.
Okay, very good. Let's continue. This FAFSA form has been frustrating to a lot of people this year, and I know that the purpose of it is to really try and get more or understand what people's finances are to see if there's more support available. Have you seen, based on what this new FAFSA has shown, Priya, does it seem like there's less aid coming to people this year?
I'd say the first thing is the whole purpose of the new form was to make sure that we could get the right access and the right support to the students that needed it the most. Obviously, the glitchiness and the challenges with the form did not meet that need this year, and hopefully the federal government is working on that to figure out a stronger version of the form moving forward. We're still really at the early stages of knowing and gathering data on who has received what support this year. So I don't have a direct answer to that, but I do know that there are a lot of other options out there for young people if the financial aid packages that they're receiving are not meeting their needs.
When you do the work that you all are doing with the students in the program, and as I went back to the beginning of what the goal was, which was to get all students through college, what are you finding? What are more students doing now? More of them going on to college? Are they going to community colleges? Are they going into the workforce? Are they going to the military? What are you finding? And if it's not going to college, are finances the reason why?
Yeah, it's such an important question because I think that there are a lot of assumptions that are made about why a student may or may not choose to go to college directly after high school. We have definitely seen a change. First of all, our internal work has shown that just a significant amount of students want a college degree and are excited about being on a college track, but don't have the support to get there. And so our model is about making sure that students get all the support that they need. But we have done some internal research that shows that financial gaps are the number one reason that students may not seamlessly enroll right after high school or may actually stop out or drop out along the way. So it's the number one reason. Behind that, though, the number two reason, which I find really interesting, is social emotional challenges. So belief that you don't belong in the system or peer pressure to get a job right after high school. So there's a lot of layers to why a student may choose not to go to college or may choose not to return. But we are seeing that the majority of young people across Chicago public schools want a college degree and want to be on that college path. There just lacks the support.
I am a strong advocate for college, and I make that very clear.
I know you are.
I really am, and I really do. But I also recognize all the things we're talking about here, Priya, because I didn't go right out of high school because I didn't have the money, and I was able to get to a different school 6 months later, and I have no regrets about where I ended up going. But it's just recognizing that whole issue of finances and knowing that there are some parents having some really difficult conversations with their children while they press education all this time, and you come to this moment, and here is the problem. So all the work we're talking about here helps with the financial part. How do we get beyond the social emotional? How do we get earlier in to ensure children that this is a good path?
You know, I think that the OneGoal program is a good example of this. We've developed a curriculum that deeply supports students starting from the time that they're juniors in high school all the way through that bridge through their first year of a post-secondary program. And so, you know, that work is about connecting a trusted adult to a group of students, and that adult really seeking to understand those students, helping them find their motivators, building their aspirations, and a path toward meeting those aspirations. The typical high school student across our country, and this is regardless of neighborhood, regardless of income level, regardless of race, only receives 38 minutes of post-secondary advising throughout all 4 years of high school. 38 minutes. And I talk about that number all the time, and I didn't really believe it or understand it until my own kid started high school and was called down to his counselor's office for an 8-minute meeting. An 8-minute meeting, that's not enough for that adult to get to know my child, to understand his aspirations, his goals, to help him develop a sense of who he is, who he's becoming. And that's what we do in the OneGoal program, because it meets every day of junior year and every day of senior year as a class, that teacher truly gets to know students and helps them develop their pathway toward a post-secondary degree or credential.
So critically important. Priya Linson, Executive Director, OneGoal. She mentioned GrabPlan, GRABPLAN.org to learn more about the FAFSA, more information about what we've talked about today. And if you want to find a OneGoal program near you, go to www.onegoal. It's written out ONEGOAL, OneGoal.org. Priya, always a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you so much for joining me this morning.
So great to be on. Thanks so much, Rufus.
All right. Be well.